Israel has launched a strike against Qatar. Just why is the neutral country, the Switzerland of the Middle East, suddenly finding itself on the receiving end of Israeli munitions? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Slap that subscribe button and let's talk about it. Now, this is, according to Israel, an effort to target Hamas leadership living in Qatar. And this represents a huge expansion of Israeli military operations. Now, we know, for example, that Israel has targeted Hezbollah in Lebanon. They have targeted Iran itself. They have also targeted Houthi positions in Yemen, as well as moved their forces into Syria to create a sort of buffer zone with the new Syrian state. But this is a huge escalation because in each one of those cases, the Israelis were simply responding to uses of force by the other side, right? Hezbollah, nobody's going to sit there and tell you that Hezbollah is some innocent bystander in all this, right? They had it coming. And frankly, the Lebanese government was probably happy to see the Israelis smash them. And, same with the Houthis, right, who had been targeting civilian infrastructure for a long time. But there's a key difference for Qatar. And one is that the Qataris are acting right now as a mediator alongside Egypt in ceasefire talks, right? And this is what's insane about this, is that this Qatar is and has been for almost 10 years the Switzerland of the Middle East. It is where peace deals are and ceasefire talks in Middle Eastern conflicts are hosted. And the respect for the Qatari government as this kind of neutral spot is central to the whole idea. And so the way to think about this, particularly because Israel says, listen, we were targeting, they said, Israel told Reuters that the strike was aimed at top Hamas leaders, including Khalil al-Halaya, its exiled Gaza chief and top negotiator, right? And several blasts were heard in Qatar's Doha. This is the city in Qatar. But here's what I want you to understand here. This is absolutely insane. And here's why. Because as you may note, that one, the White House is actively right now engaged in ceasefire talks, right? And let's see if we can find it here, actually, from Steve Witkoff, right, who has said, listen, we're repeatedly trying to get a deal done here. We're trying to get to some kind of ceasefire, or rather return to a ceasefire, is the best way to put it. And Steve Witkoff and the administration have been pushing, right? Now, obviously, Steve Witkoff, not exactly a great track record from the guy, that's for sure. But the point is that the U.S. negotiators were in Qatar. Israelis were in Qatar. The Egyptians were in Qatar. The Qataris, obviously, are in Qatar. This is a site of peace negotiations. This is a site of ceasefire negotiations, right? And whether they're making progress or moving towards or away from progress, the Israeli government, the Israeli government was engaging in diplomacy here. And then, insanely enough, they didn't just strike what they said was, this was a Hamas command center somewhere else. No, they said literally they targeted the top negotiator. They targeted the Hamas. Again, Hamas isn't a state, so they don't have a diplomat, but this is someone who was given diplomat-like protections as a negotiator in this conflict. So the thing that is insane, this is preposterous on a number of levels. It's hard for me to even wrap my head around how brazen this is. First off, you have the equivalent of Russia. This is the equivalent of Russia launching strikes against Ukrainian negotiators during peace talks, during U.S.-backed peace talks, right? Imagine if Russia were to do such a thing, right? We would be like, this is an unprecedented violation of international norms. Now, again, Hamas, not a state, but they are a self-governing body, right? One that Israel, again, is it has been repeatedly negotiating with, trying to get back its hostages, and at times has had success. Hamas, there was a successful hostage exchange deal that took place. Some Israeli hostages were returned by Hamas. And what the decision by Israel to reach out to another country, another sovereign nation, and target the people who were there to negotiate is an insanely bad faith. I cannot explain the level of betrayal, like the level of violation of international norms. And again, I'm not sitting here being like Hamas is great, right? They're terrible people, but the idea that Israel says, listen, if you come to negotiate with us and negotiations don't go your way, we're going to kill you. Well, what does that mean for every other nation that tries to negotiate, right? If you're an Egyptian negotiator, are you ever going to go to Qatar and try to negotiate with the Israelis? No, because they've shown they will kill you if they don't like the direction things are going, or if simply they tire of trying to conduct negotiations. So this is the problem is not the decision itself. It's the reversal on a really important international norm, which says that negotiations take place on neutral ground. And the idea that Qatar is a sovereign nation is like itself being violated, right? Qatar was supposed to say, listen, if you guys want to use Qatar as a venue to negotiate, try to get your hostages back, we will host it. And it's done so as that's why the Taliban had a office in Qatar. And for 20 years of war, the US never targeted those Taliban officials, not once, right? Because it was seen as an international norm that this is where the Taliban and their political representatives are. And so as long as we are in this fight, are in this contention, we are going to respect that. And by the way, the deal to get our U.S. soldier back, Bo Bergdahl, who was held for years by the Taliban, was brokered and negotiated in Qatar. And the other thing that is absolutely preposterous about this is that the U.S. says nothing, despite literally this spitting in the face of Steve Witkoff, of Trump's own negotiating team. Like, and the administration's like, yay, you didn't figuratively blow up the peace negotiations. You literally blew it up. And so it's impossible to argue that at this point, that the IDF is not simply saying, listen, we are going to launch a war of annihilation. There will be no negotiated settlement. It will be total defeat. They say there will be no international norms respected. There will be no law of war respected. Again, and this isn't like my opinion, right? Using starvation as a tool to extract concessions from Hamas is a violation of the law of war. And it's something that Israel's own data clearly indicates, right? We can see for a 3-month span, they stopped food getting into Gaza, right? You also see them destroying civilian infrastructure. And they ostensibly say that, Hamas was using it as an observation post, but there were no ground troops. They're in locations that have yet to have ground troops enter them. So how can that be verified? And also, if Israel is trying to rescue hostages and Hamas is using a large office building, why would you destroy that? Like, wouldn't you worry about your hostages? Just a thought. So this just becomes more and more difficult. And the Israeli government has made statements. They've said, listen, we're going to basically destroy every building of any kind in the Gaza Strip until we get our hostages back, until Hamas is defeated, right? Because again, as we just talked about, there's it's not even clear that, like, if you're Hamas, like the Israelis are just willing to flatten buildings. So they better so either they know where the hostages are and know they can flatten these buildings and just aren't interested in rescuing them, or they don't actually know where the hostages are and they're flattening these buildings anyway because they're like, fuck them. Which again, like deliberately targeting civilians, deliberately targeting civilian infrastructure, destroying civilian infrastructure for no reason. This is all, I mean, again, violations of the law of war, which, as we've talked about, Russia and Ukraine, Russia's already shown the law of war means absolutely fuck all, right? The international community is not going to do anything. The Chinese are happy to buy Russian oil. The Indians are happy to buy Russian oil. The US president is willing to literally roll out the red carpet for you. So we shouldn't be shocked that other countries that have even more backing from the US are going to sit there and go, the law of war is whatever we want it to be, whatever we can do, whatever no one's going to stop us from doing. And this is so not, the gripe is that this doesn't even serve their own objectives. If their goal is to return hostages, then obliterating civilian infrastructure does not achieve that. It puts them in greater danger. And this is something that isn't just my opinion. This is the opinion also of thousands of Israeli reservists who are part of a growing movement of Israeli troops who are like, I'm not going to continue this fight. This fight is self-defeating. This fight is completely pointless. And a lot of them, it is not, they never come out and say it, because it's so politically unpopular, but it's fairly clear from their own language that they view this continued action as being a human rights violation. And so this, again, you can see here, right, that other buildings in Gaza, this is according to the BBC, right, have been demolished by controlled explosions and demolition contractors in the area. So again, you can't argue that these are Hamas observation posts when you can conduct a controlled demolition, right? Because to do that, you have to go into the building, you have to do a full structural assessment, you have to place these explosive charges, and then you have to destroy it. So it's not about that. It's about making the Gaza Strip uninhabitable. It's about making it a place where human beings, civilians, can't live or survive. And this is also true, again, of the Israeli efforts to relocate Palestinian civilians for the fourth time. One, making somebody walk back and forth across the Gaza Strip while starving them is also kind of torturous. But also the Israeli statements, I'll see if I can find it here, about the shelters. They say, listen, we're directing you to a designated humanitarian area on the other side of the Strip. And don't worry about food. We'll figure it out. I don't know if you've ever run any kind of large event, an event with like 3,000 people. You can't say, I'll figure out the food and water and bathroom situation and medical situation when I get there. You can't, okay? You need to figure it out prior to. And that's for 3,000 people at a concert, okay? Now imagine 30,000 or 300,000 people. It's not realistic. And it's clearly not happening because, again, we can see in the data how much is being brought in here. And like, this is, again, I don't know. It's one of those cases where I'm just like, how much more evidence does the world need? Like, how much more evidence does someone need to draw a conclusion that, again, it may not be the G word, right? Because, again, without independent reporters, without access to internal Israeli documents, who knows? And also, it doesn't even matter. But what you can say definitively is that this is absolutely targeting civilians for the sake of targeting civilians. This is absolutely just a violation of international sovereignty, a violation of the law of war. And again, if saying these things cost me thousands of dollars in sponsors. I'm telling you, right? But it doesn't matter because right and wrong matter. They're not just kind of sort of the same thing. They're not like, oh, maybe sort of like there is a difference between right and wrong, and we have an obligation to call it out. If you wonder where I get the energy to stream like this every day and also run triathlons and ultra marathons as I did literally last week, you know that my secret weapon is Strike Gum. It's veteran-owned, made in the USA, and sugar-free. It's got an energy drink's worth of caffeine in every single piece. So we're also having a buy one, get one on all single packs. So check it out at strikegum.com. And of course, as always, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you in the next one. Okay, guys. Wow, that was a lot. That was a lot of videos. Huge thank you to, we just saw somebody join, get a membership. Thank you, Chris Hogfist. Appreciate you. Anyway, guys, I got to get out of here, man. This has been a really fun video. I really appreciate you joining me, but I got to eat lunch, man. It is 1 o'clock here, so I'll see you. See you in the next video. See you probably tomorrow. Cheers.